So now we've come to a part of the tutorial I think you're going to really enjoy, and that's sitting down and talking with other photographers who are working in the world of editorial food. Today we're sitting down with Jennifer Silverman, who is one of the best in the business, if you ask me. I think you're phenomenal at what you do, without question.
Thank you.
So let's sit down and talk a little bit about your career and kind of how you got here. I know you started as an 8-year-old girl at camp wanting to escape the great outdoors.
Oh, so you've read my website.
I've read your bio, yeah, I did my own even though I know you, I still do my homework.
That's nice, that's nice. Yeah, so I always loved photography. My dad was a serious amateur photographer. And he died when I was very young.
Oh, bummer.
So I think that there was always a mystique about it for me, because there's a very, you hold on to that mystique about, a parent like in that situation,
Sure.
and the photography was so much a part of him. And
connection to him.
Yeah, absolutely. I found all these old slides in the attic and stuff like that, and it was always this sort of this ideal.
That's kind of cool discovery too, to find these images that your dad took.
Because obviously I didn't know from that back then. I was 5 years old when he died, so I didn't have that connection when he was alive. It was only afterwards that I sort of discovered all that. And so yes, when I went to sleepaway camp in upstate New York, I was not an outdoorsy child. Again, I guess my mom still doesn't understand. She thinks I'm a farmer because I live in the Midwest and have a garden.
That's awesome. Yeah. St. Louis is big on farm country.
Yeah, she's a New Yorker. She was born and raised in the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx. So by the time I got out here, she was just like, wow. She calls us with food questions about tomatoes, like what she should buy at the market because we grow them, and so she thinks I do farm, which would be awesome, but I don't. Anyway. Moved to St. Louis to go to WashU.
Okay, that's what brought you here.
That's what brought me here, Washington University. And
you got stuck.
I got stuck, man. St. Louis has that hold on people.
Yeah, it has a tractor beam on your butt, and it just pulls you in.
Absolutely, that's true. And now I'm married to a man from here, and I've been living here for many years. And this is home for now, anyway. Yeah.
So you started out your photography career in the editorial world, right?
I did. I was at the Alt Weekly here in town, which is part of the Village Voice chain of newspapers. It was called the Riverfront Times. And I was the staff photographer there for many years, and I was the only staff photographer. And I guess the good thing about, or the sort of learning while working, because I was not a photography major. I just sort of decided I loved it and thought I'd give it a go.
Right, good.
And when I got hired at the newspaper, suddenly you have to be able to do everything. And I was the only photographer on staff because it's a weekly, not a daily.
Right.
And so anything that's thrown at you, you just got to do it.
And it's a weird weekly too, because they cover everything from restaurants to politics to bands to weird stuff happening in the city. So you were photographing lots of weird stuff.
And it's a great way, it was a great way for me to really hone skills and be able to react to situations that I cannot control. To sort of be responsive to what was happening around me and be able to be a very fast, creative problem solver. Because there's so much that you just cannot control out there when you have 5 minutes to make this image work.
That's one of the things I think is very challenging for editorial photographers. Really, I think a great way for you to cut your teeth, it's speed.
Yeah,
you have to do things quickly. You don't have a lot of time with your subjects.
No. You're lucky sometimes if they give you like 5-10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
You're lucky because people don't have patience for it, especially when you're in a position where they don't want you there.
Did that happen a lot?
Oh, sure. It can be antagonistic at times.
Yeah. Because you're writing negative stories about them?
Right. That has happened. I mean, and it's funny, when I got laid off, which is what happened when everyone was losing newspaper jobs at the end of 2008, I guess. It was sort of that combination of the economy tanking and newspapers not figuring out how to use the internet and still struggling with that and how to stay relevant. It's a continuing battle for a lot of publications. And so what happened is I got laid off along with 8 other people that day. It was just sort of a big sweep.
No idea it was coming?
The funny thing is, I wasn't surprised that it happened, but I didn't know it was going to happen.
How long had you been there at that point?
I had been there for 14 years.
That's a long ride.
It's a long ride.
Yeah.
I got comfortable, which maybe isn't the best thing. I think too comfortable. I think that in retrospect, they probably did me the biggest favor that they could have. At the time, of course, I was devastated.
Right.
Because it was my identity. It was so personal. as well as just a job.
Yeah, you were definitely, I mean, that was your identity, at least in this town. I mean,
Absolutely.
everybody knew you as the RFT photographer.
And
without
like
question.
there was something to that, and it was like the cool factor then, and I was younger, and like there was something really cool about it.
Well, it's a cool newspaper.
And so I had to figure a lot out. I had to very quickly learn a lot. It's very different being a self-employed photographer than being in a staff position.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, and there was a big learning curve for me because I was not prepared to be in business for myself. But I never looked for another job. It was very clear to me. I was like, oh, I guess I'm employed now. I'm self-employed now.
So you were really not a food photographer at the RFT. You did a lot of food there.
You
did a lot of restaurant and
I did a
chef
lot of
work.
restaurants and chef work and people work, and I was far more prepared for continuing a portrait and lifestyle career than I was necessarily for a food career.
So how did you switch into food?
It was funny. Just as they laid me off, and they were at first my main client because they still continued to use me, and I still shoot for them today,
Right.
Far less, but I do. And what happened was they started doing. They realized, oh, the internet's here. I guess we better pay attention to it, and they started doing these slideshows on the website for the restaurant shoots. And so no longer was I just going in and shooting a space. Now I had to fill a slideshow that was 15 to 30 images, just depending. And I was like, well, I guess I'm shooting food too, because how can you shoot a restaurant and show everything about a restaurant and not be photographing, why people come there in the first place?
Right, you can only photograph so many chefs in so many dining rooms before you run out of material.
And I mean, I love doing those interior shots, and I love, love, love working with chefs. That's not changed.
Yeah.
But what I've really come to love is the food. And everything about it, from the poli-sci geek nerd major that I was, everything about food and food issues is compelling to me, from the politics of it to the beauty of it to, the flavors to the process.
Yeah.
And so this current trend of, from field to fork and farm to table, whatever you want to call it, suits me really wonderfully right now. I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
Good, yeah, and it shows in your website. I mean, you do go from farm to table and all the steps in between.
And that to me is where I am most passionate, is being conscious of not only how beautiful the food looks, because that final beauty shot, that hero shot, like that's everything, of course, but to also be a part of that process and to be on the farm with the producers and the growers, and I'm just, my personal politics for me get involved, and I love working with people who are doing it, in my mind, responsibly and just intelligently, intelligent farming and intelligent producing of meats, and I love being a part of all of that. It's exciting to me.
And there's a huge difference between the big corporate factory farm and the local guys, which you're working with the local guys.
I am mostly, and and I've been I've done some stuff with the larger corporate stuff, and I can appreciate it. I can enjoy the idea of feeding so many people, but I love that there's still individuals involved. I still love, even in the biggest, more corporate farming environment, you still have people who are going to be out there working the land, and that's what I love showing. Whether it be editorial or commercial work, I love showing the personalities and the humanity of what goes into producing our food. You
talked about getting that gorgeous shot, and I really think that your work is stunning. The food styling is relaxed, and it's very editorial, it's very approachable. Are you working just with the chefs, or are you kind of pulling it apart yourself once they bring it to you? What's your food styling approach?
It's a combination of both. So much depends, and I guess this comes back down to my newspaper background, is reacting appropriately to a situation. Not only do I know I have a responsibility to bring my client the most beautiful food photo that I can make, but I also am walking a line sometimes of working with chefs who have a very clear and distinct vision for their food, and bringing that to the shoot as well. So some chefs are clearly, much more deliberate in their process, and I tend to mess very little. I clean up on those. I bring in my little tweezers and I clean up, and I do a little dabbing with Q-tips or whatever needs to happen, just to make it more precise and clean. And other chefs will, who take a more relaxed approach might say, Jen, we've worked with you, you know what you're doing. Here, just do this, and I can respond to either one. And I guess that's, again, comes back to that sort of newspaper training of just, you have to be able to respond to a situation and to be able to read people. And so it's still about people. Even though it's about food, it's also still about people, because those relationships are really important.
Right.
And I like working with chefs a great deal. And again, some come out and there's honestly just no need to mess with the plate. The plate's beautiful.
Yeah.
And then others come out and they're like, here's the pile of ingredients. Do what you want to do.
Really?
That has happened as well. And
that's a situation I have not run into where they just kind of, that's kind of cool.
It's rare.
You know?
It's rare. I will say it's rare, but it's happened. And I love that, you know. And then sometimes it's somewhere in between. You know, they'll bring out something. I'm like, hey, do you mind if I like tweak this a little bit? Or we talk about it and we work through the plate together. You know, like let's move it around this way or here. A lot of the times when I can make that a more successful relationship is, here, let me take a shot of how you brought it out. And here's how I think it can now become more successful. If we maybe move this or put this here or look, maybe like take a bite out of it, you know, that makes it a little bit more inviting and not as inaccessible to people. Because so much about editorial is inviting people into that plate, into that space, into, you know, that moment. And so if I can make it a little bit more active, sometimes that helps. And sometimes that means breaking down and deconstructing. And if I'm going to do that to a dish, I always, always, always photograph it as presented first.
Right.
I never would start breaking anything down before.
You might freak the chefs out. Okay, thanks for bringing that out.
Not only could it freak the chefs out, but what if I mess it up? So when working with a plate of food that a chef has brought out to me to photograph, I will always photograph it as presented first, and I'll play around with my angles, and I'll do a number of shots of that plated dish. And only after I have that shot will I go back and say, well, maybe it'll be fun if it looks like someone's taken a bite, or if I start to deconstruct it a little bit. Because there's always a chance that once I do that, the dish just sort of falls apart and it doesn't hold up. And sometimes you don't know till you're in it, you know? And if that's the case, I don't want to leave myself in a situation where I didn't have that beauty shot first. Right. And then I have a mess.
And you don't want to go back to the chef and say, hey, I screwed this up royally. Can you make a new one?
Yeah.
Which can happen.
It can happen. I prefer it doesn't. Right. So yes, I try to take all precautions that I can, certainly, to ensure that that does not happen. I mean, yeah, things happen.
Right. One of the most important things I'm hearing you say is something that I talk about all the time, and it's relationship-based.
Absolutely.
This is a completely relationship-based business, and what you're doing when you're going in and working with a chef, whether you've worked with him 0 times or 10 times, you're building that relationship and making sure that it's good going forward.
Definitely.
It's a critical part of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And those relationships, I mean, they're so valuable to me. I love working with chefs.
Right.
I want to maintain that because I want to keep on doing it.
Right.
And it's fun. I love their world, and I love that I get to be this like sort of weird, small, tangential part of that world. It's an exciting place to be. And so yeah, those relationships and nurturing them are important, and they've become, you know, many of these chefs have become friends over the years, and I love that.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to have friends that are chefs.
On so many levels.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. One of the things that I have found that can be difficult with working with chefs is that they have a great sense of what a plate should look like.
Sure.
From this point of view.
Only.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is very different from the lens point of view, because we're almost always coming low to make the food heroic.
Right.
A trick that I always work with is sit down with the chef and say, okay, I want you to take a stock pot, turn it upside down, put your plate on top of it, and build your food there. How do you work with chefs to get them to understand the lens point of view, or do you?
I sometimes do. Because especially like if I know with editorial photography, often you are dealing, and not unlike commercial work, you know, the editor may have a specific layout in mind. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, I know like where that that negative space needs to be, and I need to compose for it and all those kinds of things. And if I know that they want like that sort of what I call the vertical shot, whether the camera angle is vertical or horizontal becomes irrelevant. When I say that vertical shot, I'm referring to that food going up, you know, and to this camera angle. That's how I sort of refer to it, as opposed to what one of my art directors always calls the aerial shot, which I think is hilarious. That's her above shot. You know? She calls it aerial. But when I'm doing that like heroic lower angle, I will discuss with the chef where before they build the plate, saying, I know that I need to make this photo, and it's nice in editorial work because I get to sort of blame it on the publication. Say, the art director told me that they need to run it this way, and that's always my like weird visual cue of like, I need to look at this coming from this angle. Right. And so we need to build the plate up rather than from above how it's designed. And, you know, we'll talk about it. And what I don't like to do is surprise a chef. I'd rather sit down and have a conversation for 5-10 minutes even before they start plating, so that it's not like they're, you know, put all this effort into this plate of food and they bring it out to me and then I say, no, that's not going to work. And just like in doing business in general, and it's certainly in the photography business, I always would prefer to have a conversation up front so that come shoot time, there are no surprises.
Right.
You know, if you can knock out as few variables, you know, as many variables, as possible, well, then the more successful that shoot's going to be.
I have the same approach. Even if a client has been in the game for a long time, they're a 20-year art director or whatever,
right.
but I've never worked with them. I just sit down and talk with them about my process, even from the very simple steps. So say, because you know, we all come together in this freelance world, and we're working together for a day or an hour or 5 days together, and then you don't see them for a while.
Right.
So you've got to quickly find that way to work. And I think it's really important just to sit down and say, okay, here's what I want, here are my expectations, here's how I work. Right. And you kind of work through it. Agreed. You touched on something, and it actually just clicked for me. I was going to ask you about the negative space in your work, because it's great. I mean, when I look at your images, and I hope people really take the time to study your website, there's a great sense of space, and a lot of it's negative. There's just this absence of stuff there, but it works really well with the food. And I just realized it completely comes from your editorial background on needing headlines. Yeah. But how have you figured out how to make it, you've made it so natural. I mean, the negative spaces are great, and they draw the eye back in.
That's wonderful to hear, thank you. I don't even know that it was as conscious as what you just described, which is really fascinating for me to hear, to get that kind of feedback is really interesting. I like negative space as a design element. Right. I think the nothing can be just as powerful as the something. And depending on where you leave it, you know, it can really draw the eye into this singular moment. I think it's a really just valuable tool.
I'll tell you, I think it's more than a tool. I think it's a signature of your style. You know, and you think about how there's just a billion photographers. I mean, there's so many of us all trying to make our mark. And the key is to develop our own style. Our work is so different. I mean, mine's really in your face. I'm really tight on food, and graphic is very different. And I look at yours with this negative space. I don't know that I would know how to achieve it, but it's really become such a signature for you.
I mean, I feel very similarly about your work. Because I feel like your work can be so impactful and dramatic and just attention grabbing, because you're just in there. You're so
it's
intimate.
Bold and in your
face. It's so bold.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of my photography can be very quiet. And sometimes it worries me even sometimes that could be almost passed by. Like I need to make sure that it catches people, but my as loud and goofy as I am in person, I feel like my photographic voice is actually a much quieter one.
So are you worried about it being passed by the viewer, or by the client, or by both?
Maybe both. I don't know. I mean, we can't please everyone, and that's one thing.
God, no.
I mean, you know, so people who are going to be attracted to my style are going to be, and those who are not. And I don't want to try and please everyone, because then you dilute the work. I mean, there's no point in that.
Right.
And that's pretty basic, I think, for all of us as we develop our style. You just have to realize that some people are going to be really drawn to it, and you'll find successes within that. And if you try to please everyone, the work will suffer.
Yeah, I've often told students and people that come through workshops and through the studio, look, I can show my portfolio to art director A and they love it. And the same work can be seen by art director B, and art director B hates it. Right. Everything about it. It's because it just doesn't appeal to their style, and you can't take it personally. It's just...
You can't. I mean, and getting that through to people, I think, is tremendously important, because we all take our work personally because we're creatives.
Yeah, well, we're
artists.
It's
our work.
We're all
artists.
sensitive.
Right. You know, and so yeah, I mean, I do take my work very seriously and personally, but I don't take those interactions, and I don't take the rejections on such a personal level. I used to. It took time.
So how did you handle the rejection? I know people are going to want to know how you really broke into the world of doing editorial food photography. That's why they're buying this tutorial.
Right.
When you go from being a staff newspaper photographer for an alt publication, how do you put that first book together, and who are you showing it to?
It took probably a good 6 to 8 months after I lost my job, just sort of to figure out, like, I don't think I will succeed as a generalist, which is basically what I had been at the newspaper.
It's a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do, and I was like, okay, if that's the case, like, I need to, have like this come to Jesus moment where I need to like figure out for myself what it is I want to be doing. Forget what I can do for a minute. Forget, and this is what I tell students as well. Is just because you can do it, it doesn't mean you should be doing it. Think about what you want to be doing. Put the work out there that you want to be getting, not just because you have done it and you're capable of doing it.
Great
so if your
advice.
website or your book puts out there the kind of work that you want to be doing, and that might mean you're producing shoots on your own and spending some money on, on product, or, investing in people and doing things to get that book together. But it's going to be worth it, because you're going to then attract the clients who are going to pay you to do the work you want to be doing. And isn't that the ultimate goal? I figure there are much easier ways to make a living than being a photographer. I have to love what I'm doing.
Absolutely.
And I do. I love it, So I keep on doing it. But that's how I sort of was. I realized that food was something that I was kind of pretty decent at, as I sort of figured it out, slowly.
No, you're way more than decent. I mean, your work is just dynamite.
In the beginning, I was decent at it, and
Valid point.
and I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna make a go of this. I'm just gonna put in the work, and it is work. You know, as much as it is fun, it's work. And now it comes, knock on wood or leather or whatever, it comes a little bit easier, because the work I'm producing is now going to be able to get me more clients doing what I want to do. So the natural flow is a cleaner, more simple one.
How does work come to you now? Do you have to go out and show your book, or are you doing mainly website stuff, word of mouth stuff? How are you attracting your clients?
I am doing sort of all of the above.
Yeah.
The book less and less in some regards.
Yeah, diminishes.
The iPad has become a great tool just so that I could really shape a book to the specific clients that I'm going to meet. And then the website, which is ever changing.
Yeah.
Or probably not even changing enough, but that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, that is a hard thing. Mine needs a big update.
Yeah, so does mine.
So you're still doing a lot of face-to-face meetings with clients?
I am, and I like that. I find that there are a lot of us out there doing the same thing. And if I can still get that face-to-face with a client, and they can feel confident in me, they can see that I'm fun to be around. Because, that's a lot of it too. They have to want to work with you.
Relationship-based. Again,
it goes back to that.
You really don't build a relationship by somebody just viewing your webpage.
No.
That doesn't do it.
That might be a first step.
Yeah.
And that's great, and you want that website
Well, it
to
is
be
a first
beautiful.
step, without question.
Yeah. So then, because that's it. When you initiate contact with someone, that's the first thing they're going to go do. They're going to go check out your website. Right. And so that's incredibly important. There's so many people doing what we do. There's so many, and there's so many really talented people doing what we do. And photography is more accessible than ever. Right. Technology has made it so, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I think it's like this grand equalizer.
It is, but one of the reasons we're doing this is because so many people are entering the market and they really don't know how to run the cameras. These things have power. They've got 6 computers in them, and people are expecting that they can just be a photographer because they can get great results, but you got to take it off of automatic.
Absolutely, and that's sort of where I was going, is that it is this grand equalizer, and it is accessible like it's never been before, but it's doesn't mean that everyone excels, and there are definite holes in this process and in their education. And it doesn't have to be a formal education. I was not a photography major in college. I didn't study it. But it's a matter of learning to use your tools, and the camera is your tool when you're a photographer, and there is nothing, and why would you want to use your tool and not know how to use it well? That seems to me like, what a waste.
Yeah, it's kind of
a bad tragic,
thing. Yeah, it is, without question.
So, and in addition to that, it's not only then, even if you excel at the tool, you don't necessarily know how to run a business. And it's not just a matter of paperwork and your marketing and your bookkeeping and all of those things, making sure you're getting paid and all the things that go along with being an independent photographer. But in addition to that, it's making that client feel comfortable and have complete faith that you will be able to deliver under any number of circumstances the product that they need. And that's where I think the professional comes in and makes a difference, is that there might be people who can do exactly what I'm doing. I don't think what I'm doing is rocket science.
No, it's not.
It's not. There are very clear steps to take, and there's personal aesthetics that come into it, but it's not because it's so difficult. But what the difference is that I have proven time and again to clients that no matter what, they're going to get usable, good images. And I show up at a restaurant, and let's say, something happens and I only have 10 minutes where I thought I had 2 hours, I'm still going to make an image that's going to be a good image and will work in print, and I'll get the job done. and I'm not going to get flustered. I'm just going to make it happen. And that's the experience. I think that's where, being a professional and having the tools, not only, the technical ones, because we can all sit and learn technical, but it's everything else that goes into it.
I preach that all the time, being able to be relaxed, handle the curveballs, because there's 1 or 2 or 3 coming on every job.
Oh, totally.
They always happen, and you don't know what they are, and if you get rattled, you're done.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, as I'm listening to you talk, this business really isn't rocket science. It's not that difficult. We can all learn the skills. This business is really personal.
Absolutely.
It's understanding your equipment, understanding your style, understanding your clients and how you need to interact with them. And walking into a situation and saying, okay, I've got to quickly assess who these people are and how they work, and I got to play my game on their level.
And that's exactly it. It's quickly assessing. I think that's not to be taken lightly or sort of breezed over.
Right.
I think you do have to walk into a room and very, very quickly understand the dynamics at play as much as you can, and understand, who needs what from you, and that doesn't mean just about the final photo. Maybe they need a little bit more coddling. Maybe they need to see a little bit more of your process and to be shown things along the way. And maybe there are some art buyers or art directors who are very hands-off, and if you come and show them every single frame, they're just going to get annoyed. Right. It's reading personalities, and so whether you're photographing people or not, being a people person is still going to be incredibly important. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a product photographer and food photographer and never photograph a person.
Right, you can't be a recluse in this business.
You can't. You absolutely cannot. And so if that doesn't come naturally for you, then that's something you got to work on.
How do you handle the downtime? Because obviously you're not shooting every single day. I know you're busy, but how do you handle off hours?
Yeah, I mean, I'm busy, sure. And then I come to really value the downtime. Whether it means that I'm catching up on paperwork, which there's always paperwork, or working on marketing, or theoretically updating my website, which really needs to happen. All of those things, and then every once in a while, it's really nice just to take a day, Because I really think that true downtime is very important. I think that, ultimately we're creative people, and to sort of refresh get those creative juices flowing again, and enjoy and get excited about something outside of photography is really healthy and important, and I think brings a great perspective to your work because you're interested in other things. I think
Absolutely.
So much of what we do, it requires us to be interested. Photographs are only going to be good and exciting and captivating if you as the photographer are interested in whatever it is, and whatever's in front of your lens.
I love that phrase, and I hope people pay great attention to what you just said, because it's really targeted.
Cool. I think it's really important, and I preach it and I believe it. And if I am not interested in what I'm photographing, you're going to see it in the photos. And so I think to bring it back to this downtime and this notion of that not enough of it exists in my world.
It is a notion.
Yes, sometimes it often is. But that being said, it's go do something else. Spend time with people that are important to you. Go find a new hobby that's not about photography. Go. I want to learn how to knit. I've decided.
Really?
I don't know how to, but this is
Okay.
right now. It's still a concept. It's
All
still
right.
floating out there. But I've just decided. Just because why the hell not?
That's cool.
It'd just be something silly and fun to do. And on a cold winter day, I want to curl up. I'm one of those people. I'm really on when I'm on. When I'm in front of clients and I'm working and here, I'm ready to go. And I need to shut down occasionally.
Right.
I can't keep this up.
It's a pretty
this is
blistering pace.
non-caffeinated, okay?
That's not caffeinated?
I know. I
Wow,
don't drink caffeine.
That's impressive.
Oh, it's ridiculous. Because I tell people, really, do you think I need artificial stimulation?
Yeah, if you were on coffee,
No.
that would be a bad.
God help us all.
Right. So I know you're happy where you are with your career. You really love what you're doing.
I do.
Do you long range plan? What's next? What's on the horizon? Or are you just really enjoying this particular period in your career?
I am enjoying it, and I don't want to lose that enjoyment, and I won't. I'm at no risk of losing the joy in what I'm doing right now. But yeah, I want to be growing and doing more and doing different kinds of projects and new challenges. And if that means, I do also shoot commercial work, not nearly as much as I do editorial.
Right.
The editorial is definitely what I spend the most time doing. But in terms of financially, clearly there's more money in commercial work, and I'd like to be doing more of that. I'm not shy about that, and I am doing some of it, and it's a fun balance for me. And what's also been, I think, really nice is that a lot of this more editorial aesthetic there's a little bit more crossover happening. It's becoming a little bit more prevalent and a little bit more in trend currently in some, not all, but in some commercial photography.
No, I would agree, without question.
And so for me, that's a really nice balance because I like the style very much of editorial work. I like the soul of it. I love the way it feels, and I love that I could bring that into a more commercial setting as well, and communicate that vision to a broader client base.
It's awesome. I love your attitude. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us about your work and your career and how you've kind of made your way through this very crazy business. So you can check out Jennifer's work at jennifersilverberg.com. You actually are willing to talk with people about their work, are you not?
I will. I will be happy to field questions and look at some work of young and new and excited photographers. I find it exciting and invigorating to sort of see new perspectives. I think it's wonderful.
If you can, take Jennifer up on that offer, because not only is she a great photographer, but she's a great educator in the world of photography as well. So there's a lot of knowledge in this lady's head. Your Instagram feed, it's different than Jennifer Silverberg.
It's Jen, Jenn.
Okay.
Yeah, Silverberg. So Jen Silverberg is
Check that out,
my
because it's
Instagram.
fun.
It's fun. I love doing it. I have a mild addiction. So hope to see you there.
That's it. Thank you so much.